Hey everybody, Joe with Joe's Phenomenal here, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be making New York style keto cheesecake with strawberry sauce. So what are we waiting for? Let's get into this. Alright, so this recipe consists of the sauce, the crust, and the filling. And I'm assuming you want to get this thing done as quickly as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to preheat the oven first, then we're going to make our sauce. While that's cooking and reducing, we should have plenty of time to make the crust and let it cool just a little bit. Make the filling, pour it in, bake it, let it cool down, and after that, it goes in the refrigerator for a few hours, and then you got some great cheesecake.
I could still be done in time to lay in bed, stare at the ceiling, and slip slowly into madness.
So first things first, go ahead and preheat your oven to 350, and while that's warming up, you can work on the sauce. The strawberry sauce is unbelievably easy to make. There's only a handful of ingredients, and really the only tedious part about it is dicing up all those strawberries. Just one thing, when you dice those up, do your best to try to get a uniform size on the pieces. Also, I wouldn't use frozen strawberries, just go out and get fresh ones. Fresh is almost always better than frozen. Frozen fruit ends up with a lot more water content, and we don't want all that in our sauce because it's gonna make it really runny. Don't worry if the ones at your grocery store aren't quite that sweet, you can always add a little bit more sweetener in there to balance it out. Okay, the sauce is pretty simple. All you gotta do is turn your burner up on high. First we're gonna throw in our strawberries, and we're gonna throw in our monk fruit sweetener, a little vanilla extract, a little lemon juice, and then we got a little bit of cornstarch that we're going to use to thicken this. And you're going to want to go ahead and stir that up really good. We're going to let this come to a boil, and then once it's at a boil, we're going to set it on medium-low heat and just let it kind of sit there. It's going to sort of melt some of the strawberries down, and then we're going to have chunks of strawberry in here and a little bit of sauce. It's going to be great. If your strawberries aren't very juicy, you can add a tiny bit of water here, and that'll give it a little bit more sauce. You can see it's only been a couple of minutes, and this is already really starting to produce a lot of sauce here. Now remember, you don't want a soupy sauce. You want it to be nice and thick. You don't want it to be dry, but you don't want it going all over the place either. Okay, looks like that is up to temperature. Let me just go ahead and reduce the heat down. And then basically you can just let this sit here and stir it once in a while, so just make sure it doesn't burn. And even now you can see that that's already looking pretty close to what we want here. You see that? Looks pretty good. Okay, as you can see, strawberry sauce is done, so we can actually go ahead and take that off the heat and set it aside. This kind of varies because this actually got done about the same time we got done preheating the oven. So your results kind of vary a little bit depending on what you're cooking on and how dry your strawberries are. Okay, to make your crust, you're gonna take your almond flour, pour that right in there, your melted butter, our vanilla extract, and our monk fruit sweetener here. And we're going to want to go ahead and combine these. Mix it around really good, make sure you combine all this really good, and then we're going to put it into our pan. What you really should be using to make cheesecake is a springform pan. I don't have one, so I'm going to be using a regular pie pan. But you should be perfectly fine with that. We'll just have to be a little bit more careful. You're going to see that it should be pretty crumply like this. That's how you know you have the right consistency. When it's kind of sticking, but kind of not, that's when you know you got it just about right. I'm just going to do this a teeny bit more, and then we're going to transfer this into our pan. For your pan, be sure to grease this really good or line it with parchment paper, one or the other. But you definitely don't want this getting stuck to. This is the most common problem I have, is I forget to do this part, and then when it gets done, I have this great looking cake or pie or something, and then I can't get it out of the tin, and then I have a big mess. So don't make the same mistake I do, please. And basically all we're gonna do here is we're just gonna press the dough into the pan. So I'm just gonna put this in here. Okay, you're just gonna wanna press this flat in here. In this case, it's gonna be a lot like making a pie crust. Be sure you take your time with this and try to get it really nice and even all the way around. It's gonna pay dividends later on if you do. You may have better technique than I do at this because I really suck at baking. But we're gonna get through it, I promise. Okay, once you got it nice and even here, then we're gonna go ahead and throw it in the oven because your oven should be preheated by now. As you can see, this is going by pretty quick. We got our sauce done pretty much. And we got our crust getting ready to go in the oven. Okay, we're gonna put this in the oven. We'll keep it in there between 10 and 12 minutes or until it's slightly golden. Be sure to check on it every once in a while though. We don't want to overcook it.
2,000 years later.
All right, it's been about 12 minutes. Let's take a look here. It's just slightly golden, so that's what we want. What I forgot to mention is that on your crust, you could take a toothpick and poke around at the bottom of the crust before you put it in the oven. That way it'll allow any air pockets to get out, and then you won't bubble up the bottom of your crust. In any case, we'll go ahead and let this cool here for about 10 minutes and we'll go ahead and work on our filling. Okay, now in our mixer, we're gonna go ahead and take our cream cheese, pour all that in there, and also our monk fruit sweetener, which is the powdered variety. You don't want to use granule in this, you want a powdered version of whatever sweetener you happen to be using. Let's kind of throw that in as well. And then you're gonna wanna mix this on a very low setting. I would probably put it on the lowest setting you got, and we're gonna keep mixing that until it gets nice and fluffy. You could stop this from time to time, just to make sure you don't have too much of this rolling up the sides of the bowl here. Just get that down back where it belongs. And this is actually looking pretty fluffy now. It'll almost kind of look like whipped cream. And that's when you know it's time to start adding eggs. Now remember, you're going to want to leave the speed at a very low speed, the lowest speed you can, because you don't want bubbles forming in this. When was the last time you had a cheesecake with bubbles in it? Never, right? Because bubbles don't belong in cheesecake. So, go and add our eggs in, one egg at a time. Just throw one in there and wait till it mixes in there pretty good. And you'll throw in one more. And our last one. Then you can just add in the lemon juice and the vanilla extract. And once you have that combined really well, we're going to go ahead and pour that into our pie crust. And I believe that's looking pretty good. Yeah, that's looking good.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Okay, now we go ahead and pour in our cheesecake mixture. Just kind of pour it into the middle. If you've got a pastry spatula, that's really the best thing to use here. Otherwise, just use the best thing you got. Be really careful not to annihilate your crust or anything like that. That's why you want to pour from the middle and then push outward. Just want to kind of smooth this out as much as you can here. Get it nice and even. You're going to want to try to get this as level as you can here. I don't mind going over the edge of the crust here a little bit because that's perfectly fine. In fact, that's probably what we want to do. Kind of looks like you're putting on spackle or something, doesn't it? Well, hopefully this is going to taste better than that though. If not, I got a feeling you're going to unsubscribe. By the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks, and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. Okay, now we're back in the oven for about between 45 minutes and an hour. You're gonna wait until the center is almost set, but you still want it to be a little bit jiggly. Because remember, it's still gonna keep cooking. As it cools down, it's gonna set, and as it refrigerates, it's gonna set a little bit more. And the last thing you wanna do is overcook it.
One eternity later.
Okay, it's been about 45 minutes, and that looks just about ready. You could tell because it's still gonna be a tiny bit jiggly. If you shake it, you might be able to see that there. That's when you take it out because it's gonna set further. So we're gonna go ahead and take this out of the oven, and you're gonna wanna let it set and return all the way back to room temperature. And once it's completely cooled down, then you can go ahead and throw it in the fridge. And you want that to be in the fridge for at least 4 hours, preferably overnight, before you try to take it out of the pan. Leave it in there until then. All right, now to get this plated up. If you're not using a springform pan, be really careful. If you're just using a regular pie tin, it's gonna be very easy to break your cheesecake. So just take extra care when you pull these pieces out. And then your topping here. There you are. Wow, I can't wait for you to try that. It came out absolutely wonderful. I think you're gonna love it. As always, all the ingredients and the measurements are down in the description area of the video, along with the calorie count, the protein, the carbs, and the fat. For this recipe, I used the monk fruit sweetener, mostly because it doesn't have an aftertaste. I wouldn't recommend using stevia for this because stevia does have a little bit of an aftertaste to it. But the monk fruit sweetener that I used for this recipe actually has a little bit of sugar alcohol in it. And some people have a little bit of a problem with sugar alcohol and gives them a tummy ache. If you don't want to use that, you can use something like allulose. Allulose is derived directly from sugar. It doesn't have to use sugar alcohol, so you can avoid that problem altogether. However, if you use allulose in this recipe instead of the monk fruit sweetener, keep in mind that allulose is a little bit less sweet, so you're going to want to use a little bit more of that to balance it back out again. If you tried this recipe, I'd love to hear a little bit about how it came out for you down in the comments. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Joe's Phenomenal, you can watch a couple more of our videos, or you can visit us online at joesphenomenal.com. I thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day to hang out here and watch this video with me. Once again, my name's Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.